Okay, we're going to get started, everybody. Thank you. March already. How did that happen? I feel like we were just recovering from the holidays. So welcome to the March General Meeting of the Mount Diablo Astronautical Society. We have very exciting panel tonight and also a What's Up that I'm really intrigued by. Just for all the imagers that are presenting tonight at the break, you only get a 5-minute break, not 10, and we're going to have you sit up front. Okay, so get your coffee early and your snacks on. Okay, so agenda introductions. Are there any new members here? All right, well, welcome. Thank you for coming, everybody. Okay, bathrooms through the hallway here if you need to use them. Can we see the screen okay? Do we need to turn down these lights? Turn it down, okay. And welcome to the Zoom audience as always. Okay, so Leary Wong is going to do our What's Up presentation tonight. We'll have a quick break and then promptly with the MDAS imagers. We hope to be done around 9-ish so that the team can clean up. So try to limit your presentations as Stu has recommended, okay? Because I know it's going to be tight. Okay, real quick, we have a very, very busy month on the outreach. They could use lots of help. March 25th, SRV Christian Academy, the 15th of April, that's midweek, the California Trails Conference Star Party. We could use some telescopes for that. Fallon Middle School on the 16th, Ream Science Fair on the 21st, 22nd, the Morello Park Elementary, 24th, Diablo Vista Middle School. You guys, if you got a telescope, you got any kind of interest, the outreach is one of the biggest things, how we reach the public, and we need a lot of help this month. Okay, go ahead. Come up real quick, Ken. He's spearheading it all.
So I'm Ken Coates, the outreach coordinator for the west part of our area. And I just wanted to say that the Ream Science Fair and the Morello Park Science Fair, I'm handling those by myself, so you don't need to do anything about those. But the one we really need some help on is the Fallon Middle School Astronomy Night. So, thank you.
Okay, and also if you have not picked up your outreach pins from last year, grab him tonight. They're really cool. Next, Society Astronomy Night for the general public. The Society Astronomy Nights are the 11th and the 25th, and then the next public observing night is the 18th with the We Are Stardust presentation. So make sure you come up on the mountain, support the club. And real quick, we got a new comet. Have anybody heard about comet maps yet? Okay, so this is going to be a sun grazer. It has the potential to be very, very bright, talking about magnitude of Venus, potentially, observable in the daylight sky, but right next to the sun. So just make sure if you are going to use it that you are going to try to view it, use your precautions as you're looking towards the sun and making sure you're protecting your scope and your eyes. In the northern hemisphere, we're going to have a little less of a hard peak than the southern hemisphere. Both are going to be hard, but right after sunset, just look for Venus and then look for it might be a headless comet. It looks like it may be on the path to oblivion. What are your thoughts, Rod? What are your thoughts on if it's going to survive? Is it going to survive to be visualized? Okay, so keep your eye for the sky, April 4th to the 12th, low in the southwest sky, just after sunset. Okay.
Comets that are close to the sun, you do need to be extremely careful if you use any sort of optical help. The best thing, you need to do extra special precautions when a comet is very close to the sun. And the best thing is to put the sun behind a building where the sun's motion will keep it behind the building. So no matter how excited you get or how careless you get, you don't look at the sun directly with your binoculars or whatever. But it's great fun. Just be careful.
Okay, and with that, What's up, Larry? Give him a big round of applause.
Well, I have a question. Have anybody had a chance to visit China? Okay, we had a few. Has anybody had a chance to go to the ancient observatory in Beijing? Well, very good. I'm impressed. So, okay, we're going to start the first slide. Okay, I first got started in astronomy back in about 2005, 10, somewhere around there. And we happened to go to the Chabot Observatory. And you okay now? And what I saw, whoops. Yeah, so we have a Chinese armillary that was on display, and it was just a temporary loaner from China and since been moved to other museums. Has anybody had a chance to see this one? Well, this thing is really gorgeous. The sphere is being supported by dragons, and I had hoped that I would see more objects like this when I went to Beijing. Okay, and so this is what I got to see. And so when I went to China, we were not planning to go to the observatory. Our hotel was 3 miles away, and I just said, well, I'm close by, I got to go. And the tour director said, no, you're not going. We're going to the Great Wall. I said, no, I'm not. I'm going here. So he gave me 1 hour to go through this museum. So my intent was, I'm not going to read anything. I'm going to run through the museum, take photographs. And when I came home, I'm going to look through the photographs, see if I can decipher Chinese, which I can't read or write Chinese. And so, I'll see what I can do. So there's a tower up here, and there's some astronomy objects up there. So we get the next slide. So you can just barely see the top of the tower or platform and a few objects up there. There's a 50-foot high tower, and there's a wall that used to go around the center of Beijing, but is no longer in existence. Next slide. And on top of the platform, this is a schematic of the layout, and there's 6 or 7 astronomy objects up here. Now, this presentation is not about astronomy equipment, but I'll just talk very briefly about them. This is the layout of the entire observatory. This is the platform where the instruments are, a garden, exhibition halls are in brown, and there's offices in yellow. So this is the first object that's on top of the terrace. It's about 10 feet tall. It's an azimuth theodolite. And then we have a section here. A ecliptic armillary. Another armillary sphere. This is very similar to the one that was in Chabot Observatory. I don't think that's the same one, though. This is a Chinese star dial, a square table, and then Noman. This is like a sundial that shadows the shadow of the sun on toward this table. And this is a seismograph. There's little steel balls inside it. So when there's an earthquake, the balls will fall out of the mouth of one of the dragons. That'll give you the direction of which the earthquake moved. This is a star map that Chinese created. And there again, I cannot read these characters. This is a Chinese constellation map. And it's hard to say, but that looks like that could be the Ursa Major. And maybe that is Cassiopeia. but then that looks like that too. So I'm not sure. So this is what this talk is more about. It's not about the instruments. It's about the Jesuit astronomers. And I had no idea that the Jesuit astronomers would be in the Chinese observatory. And so back in the 1600s, the Europeans were expanding their imperialistic concepts all around the world. And one of the things that the Roman Church wanted to do was to spread Catholicism to the other countries. And so in this picture, there are 9 European Jesuit astronomers, and then there are 9 Chinese astronomers. And so of the 9, I only chose 3 to very briefly talk about it. It's more about their life in China. So this is Ferdinand Verbius. And if you notice that he's got some instruments, and those instruments you saw on top of the terrace, those were really European instruments that were brought over by the Jesuit astronomers. And if you also notice that he's wearing Chinese garbs. And so I'll go a little bit into that reason later, but that became a conflict with the Roman Catholic Church. And this is Johann Adam Charles von Bell. He was also a Jesuit missionary, astronomer. And these Jesuits were extremely expert, very knowledgeable people. They had knowledge of music, science, philosophy, mathematics, of course, astronomy and science, and they learned this in Europe. And at the time, European science was flourishing throughout all of Europe. Matteo Ricci was an astronomer, and the astronomers, they all kind of did the same thing all about the early 1600s to the later part of the decade. So in order to understand the Jesuits' dilemma, they were trying to teach the Catholic Christianity to Chinese who followed the Taoist, Confucianism, and Buddhist philosophies. They weren't religions per se. They didn't have a God that they worshiped, but they were philosophical beliefs that were more of a social guideline. And so the emperor was considered to be the son of heaven. Everything centered was directed to him, the way the emperor controlled the country. So the Jesuits were a particular branch of the Roman Christian Catholic Church, and their primary mission was to spread Christianity around the world. And they also developed a belief to maintain poverty, whereas other Christian orders of the Catholic Church did not. So as I said before, the European astronomers, they were just learning magnificent new discoveries during this period of time. But in China, like I said, the emperor was getting information from the Chinese astronomers more as astrologers. So they would develop maps and calendars to help the emperor and their advisors to make decisions to help govern the country, farming seasons, and cultural events. During the same time, astronomy was pretty stagnant. There was a lot of conflict in China with the different dynasties coming and going. And so China was not really developing from a scientific standpoint, where again, as Europe was, it was just flourishing. So, the Chinese, the Jesuits, they learned to read, write, speak Chinese. Some of them even adopted a Chinese name. Like I said before, they put on Chinese garments and developed the the style that's affluent with the Chinese aristocrats, which was against the Roman Catholic order. Okay, like I said before, the instruments we saw on top of the wall were brought in by the Jesuits. The Jesuits, they became quite impressed the Chinese, and they knew so much that they actually became directors of various astronomy societies in China. And they became important advisors to the emperor. But then as things always change in the world, conflict, whether it's political or religious conflict, occurred in China. And there's some part of the hierarchy found it very difficult to accept the European ideologies. And so after the death of Emperor Shizun in 1661, the Chinese anti-Christian movement forced the missionaries to leave China. Some of it was rather radical, some of it was kind of violent. They were put in prisons, and some were even sentenced to death. You want to skip this one, I'll come back to it. And the Chinese calendar, like I said, was inaccurate. But after several periods of unrest, Ferdinand Verbius was able to work with Chinese astronomers to improve the Chinese calendar. And there were certain meteorological events that occurred during this period of time, which really impressed the Chinese observatories and the emperors, because the Chinese calendar was so poor, and the ones that were developed by the Europeans was so more accurate that they regained their stature and were put back in charge at the Imperial Astronomy Observatory. The other astronomers, Jesuit astronomers, also were given high positions. Let's go back to the picture of this one here. So in the early 1900s, there was a war that broke out in China, and then the French and German military, they stole all the instruments that were on top of that war. After the war, Germany and France returned the instruments. So China, like I said, it's had a tumultuous history. And so in the 1950s, the communists took over, and then foreign presence was no longer permitted, and China's closed its door again. And so after many years, there's still a lot of turmoil in China, but lately China has really improved. Who knows what's going to happen. But as of 2026, only 2.5% of the Chinese are Christian. So that's my story. Is there any questions? Any questions in the back?
I'm gonna walk around real quick.
You said the instruments on top of the building were from Europe, but some of them had dragons on them. Were the dragons added after they got there? Or?
Correct. There were copies that were made to simulate the Europeans with the Chinese artifacts on it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Instead of a question, more just 2 or 3 points. I'm the one that reads Chinese day in, day out, especially that part of the story. And the other version of why Jesuits were actually driven out from China, number one was the Roman Catholic Church did not allow ancestral worship. And that was one that Chinese cared very much about it, and that came to a significant conflict with the emperor.
That's correct.
And then, and also, unfortunately, Jesuits were probably involved in the fighting for heir and choice of heir in the next empire, and they lost.
Oh.
Their bet lost.
Okay. This last picture is the Shenzhen Observatory in Shanghai And I was in Shanghai, but I didn't know that this was here. And so this is the church, Roman Catholic Church here, and this is the Shenzhen Observatory. And I guess he didn't get telescope till maybe the 1700s.
We had a couple other questions. Want to read your hand?
So the instrument that had dragons,
Some of them did.
right? So, well, the one you showed, I'm just curious how it's used, the actual instrument.
I'm sorry.
There was a sphere.
Yes.
I forgot what it's called.
The armillary.
Yeah, how is
Yes.
it used?
Yeah, it was the one in Oakland Observatory was about 8-10 feet long in a circle, and it was just supported on dragons. And so I suspect that they took the European design and modified it with the Chinese features.
And an online question from Nate. He wanted to know, is the church still operating?
This church here, yes, it is. There are several churches Catholic churches, there's Muslim churches, so there's different religions in China, although they're kind of frowned on. They're not really well supported by the government.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Was there one left?
Do you know if what the astrologers did with the knowledge they gained, was it used for crop planting or just divination? Any ideas there?
Well, it was for crop planting, but there is certain Chinese rituals that they have. And a lot of it's based upon astrology, the zodiac, and such like that. And they would have festivals, but if the days were wrong, and I don't know how they figured out what was right or wrong, but it was a grave consequence, as an embarrassment to the emperor if something did not go the way the astrologers predicted.
Okay, one more.
Sorry, just to add to that point, the deciding factor for that adjustment of Chinese calendar, the Chinese calendar lunar calendar was falling off, was getting wrong. There were 3 fractions of astronomers at that time trying to compete for the position. And the deciding time was finding the solar eclipse. The Muslim astronomers were the first one that dictated, and they were wrong. The Chinese were the second wrong. And then the Jesuits were the closest. They were also wrong, but they were closest. That's why they gave it to China. And it was in Chinese philosophy, any solar eclipse was a divine warning against emperors' ill moral. That had a huge political connotation at the time.
All right. Kent, can you stand up real quick? Kent Richardson? Yep. So Kent is our What's Up coordinator. So Leary, thank you so much. That takes a lot of guts to come up in front of all you guys and give a presentation like that and share your enthusiasm and knowledge. So thank you so much. Okay. So this is an open stage. Any of you here, any of our Zoom audience, if you have something you're interested in and you researched it, or a little bit of knowledge that you have, we would really enjoy you presenting for our club, sharing your knowledge, sharing your passion. Okay, so talk to Kent and he'll get you set up on the books. Okay. Okay, and before we break, there was a question online about the Yosemite Star Party. Kevin, our new Yosemite coordinator, is working on that, and hopefully we'll have an update soon. And also a quick announcement from Rich Ozer before the break.
I just wanted to remind people who might be interested that registration has opened for the Barcroft High Altitude Star Party. And that is held in the east of the Eastern Sierra in the White Mountains. Basically, you go to Bishop and then go straight up for 12,000 feet. And it's a glamping experience with low oxygen. And so it's at the University of California High Altitude Research Center. There's a full-time caretaker and chef at the center. Bunk beds, showers, pool table, books, and hopefully dark skies unsurpassed by pretty much anywhere we can go. So it's a favorite spot for astrophotographers. It's an event that's shared by the Mount Diablo Astronomical Society, the East Bay Astronomical Society, and the Tri-Valley Astronomers. So come see. August 5th through 10th, I believe is the dates on that. I will be happy to give you more information. Come see me during the break and I'll tell you where to go to learn more. So anyway, that was it.
Online can't do it, but you still got to use the mic.
Of one of these lovely jackets, thank you, like this. A lot that you can do with them. I have a small and a medium if you want to try those on to decide what size you want. And I think there are several other people that have them here. So thank you.
All right, let's break. Thanks, guys. And then the imagers, come take a seat up on the front stage. Okay, guys, we're gonna get started again. Thank you. Not enough time. Yeah. Okay, so do we have all the imagers up and seated? Okay, thank you for joining back after the break. So we have tonight's main speaker presentation. Stuart Forman is our astroimaging chair, and he's also going to be moderating the presentation tonight. And we'll have a panel of our advanced imagers presenting their beautiful images and how they do them. And they're going to make it seem easy and fun, and you're all going to be hooked.
Hi, everybody. We're back. We do this presentation whenever the Mount Diablo Astronomy Society board really can't find anybody else. And so they needed a slot to fill for this month, and we're it. My name is Stuart Forman. I've been a member of Mount Diablo Astronomy Society for close to 30 years. I think I joined the same day that Rich Ozer did, or at least really close. I think we both went to our first meeting the same time back in 1990, whatever. You don't often see me on these because Tuesday nights for my band practice, but I canceled it tonight for you. All righty. So this is the imaging group. This is not our whole imaging group. We're actually a pretty large group, but these are people who volunteered to join. Just a note about the imaging group. This is a group of astronomers in Mount Diablo. This is not our group. This is your group. Okay, so this is your group. You are welcome to join at any time. Every single one of us up here have been beginners at one time or another. Okay, I started I went to my first imaging group meeting. I didn't know what I was doing. And not everybody, but a lot of people on this committee, on this group, can say exactly the same thing that. So we invite you to join if you want to join, if you just want to learn. We are happy to have you, and we are happy to spend your money. Okay, so I'm just going to get started off. Each of us are going to have about 5 minutes or so, and I have to hold the questions at the end because there's a lot of us, and you can then direct it to who you want. Most of my imaging now is not from my backyard, but I'm part of a small group out of Chile, where we have a 24-inch scope at the top of the desert. This is one of the images that we took from here. I processed this. This is a 2-panel mosaic of this beautiful nebula. This is NGC 1871. These colors are all completely false colors. Okay, this is a narrowband image. The only true colors that are true are the stars. The stars are true colors. This is what we call the Hubble palette, which is red is assigned to sulfur, green is assigned to hydrogen, blue is assigned to oxygen. And I really like this image. When we took it, it was on its side. We rotated, cropped it, and you can't see it, but well, you can see it a little bit here, where you can see where the two images will connect. And a lot of our images can be red, green, blue. Some of them will be narrowband, as you will see. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, which is Jim McGill. And he's going to tell you about this image.
Okay. As Stu already alluded to, well, first of all, this is a single set of data that Stu processed it, and I processed it. So Stu produced this result, and I produced that result out of the exact same data. First of all, what is it? It's M8, otherwise known as the Lagoon Nebula. And you're looking at the central core of it there, the brightest part of the Lagoon Nebula. So this is narrowband data, and you can process, it is false color, and there's many ways that you can assign colors for narrowband, but Stu and I both made the same choice. It is SHO data. But you can see that the data over here, I've taken more liberties with the data than Stu has. So Stu produced this result, which I would say is just less manipulated. And I have some different tools that I used, and I produced the image over here. It is turned upside down, if you will. That was Stu's choice, by the way. So anyway, this has, again, the colors are more highly manipulated. There's a little more contrast, I think, in this image. And obviously it's cropped and rotated. So, the sky doesn't, or the objects that are up there aren't ideal for hanging on your wall. And that's my goal. My goal is to make it ideal for hanging on my wall. And so I make decisions in terms of how to process the data, and my decisions are obviously different than Stu's decisions. So this is an example of how different things can be. Just as a side note, I'm sorry for trying to blind our imager over there. There are prints, 11 prints on the table over there. If you want to see how some of these astro images come out in prints, come up and look. And if you want to talk prints, I'd be delighted to do it.
So one thing I forgot in my intro is that we all went into astrophotography for different reasons. and we all have different goals. So Jim just told you that his goal is to print images. He doesn't really have a website. He doesn't post online. He just likes to print images, hang them in his house. I don't have a website either, but my goal for this is not to print images, but I see each image as kind of a puzzle to solve. And I have a vision of sort of how I want this to work. And then I kind of use the data as puzzle pieces to say, okay, how can I make this pretty and still be true to the data? All right. Now I'd like to turn it over to Alex, and he's going to talk about.
Nice.
Right, left.
Yeah, I will talk about the setup. How do you get to take images like these? So in this case, it's just one image that I will show you. This is Thor's Helmet Nebula. This is taken with narrowband filter. I have color camera. It's passing to narrow bands for oxygen and hydrogen. And this nebula is atypically, has a lot of ionized oxygen, so it's more blue than red, a lot more blue than red. There's a little bit of red brought out there. But yeah, we all have different goals, but I like to get pretty pictures. And also looking at the sky, I will never see anything like this with my eyes. So I really like, it's almost like looking for mushrooms in the forest. You're digging for treasure. So how do you get to take images? So first of all, you need to decide where you want to observe. There's a lot of things that are the same between visual and imaging astronomy. And I will talk about some things that are the same, a lot of things that are different. So of course, level your tripod and, pick the location for visual and photography. You plan your evening, you think about the objects. In my case, this telescope is actually 6 telescopes in one, because ASCRV has 2 different apertures, 60 and 80 millimeters, and it has reducer, flattener, and extender. So I can choose between 6 focal lengths. So I look at what's available. A lot of times I use AI to see what's available at my location with my equipment and what focal length I should use, and then set it up. Of course, level it, connect all the cables, and make sure you have power and all of those things. And then the next step is, depending on the image, there's, the type of filter that you pick. I have color cameras, so it's either narrowband or kind of true color, use UV IR cut to reduce the glow a little bit from the stars. And then I don't have mono camera, but in that case, there's a lot more decisions to be made and more filters, because each filter determines what images you're taking, and then you will combine them later. And then first thing to do is I need to focus. One thing that saves me a lot of time these days is I have electronic autofocuser, and you just kind of know approximate location of where focus should be, and then it does the rest for you. And it can also periodically refocus through the night. So it's quite a nice gadget. Before I had that, I use Batinov mask, where I was manually tweaking things, and that was quite time consuming, especially when you forget your iPad at Yosemite public event and you use your little tiny phone and trying to find focus. I literally tried it for like hour and a half, and then 40 minutes, it took me 40 minutes to drive back to the campsite, get my iPad, come back, and then it took me 10 minutes. But, you live, you learn. And then another thing, and this can be done before, after, even, maybe not very often for some of the calibration frames, but it's very important when you take images to reduce a lot of imperfections that your equipment might bring. Some of it might be dirt, so flats help with that. There's biases that basically, properties of the sensor are taken into consideration, and darks where sensor might heat up and create some noise. And software is really good at just you give it all these calibration frames, and then they're subtracted or divided, and your images look way better. And then this step is, you're doing it for visual as well. There's a nice software on ZWO, and this is on ASI Air. It tells you where Polaris is. You can do polar alignment this way, how much you need to move, how many degrees, minutes, seconds. So over time, you get kind of good at it. Takes maybe 3 to 5 minutes at most. And then after that, you're kind of ready to image, except what you want to make sure is you have good tracking, because as you're taking images, and you might be taking them over several hours, you want your telescope to point at the object at exactly the same place, exactly the same framing, and then so you can stack those images later. And so tracking will help your telescope to point at the same place in the sky. But also, as you take each of the images, we call them subs, and it might be something between, as little as 10 seconds or 30 seconds, as much as 10 minutes. You don't want your telescope to stray from the object. So tracking really, really helps with that. And after that, so I kind of jump straight to, all the things you need. But one thing I didn't say is once you set up tracking, well, then you go to your object and then you figure out framing. That's another important thing. If your object doesn't fit on every angle, you might have to pick a specific angle that your camera needs to be pointed at, your sensor. And then you start imaging. There's all kinds of programs in the software. You can do plan for the whole night, or you can live stack and do electronically assisted astronomy, where you can get a public event and every 3 minutes or so, another image is being added, and it looks prettier and prettier over time, and people can look at it. And this is just a general kind of a shopping list. You might want to heat your telescope so dew doesn't collect, and and all the other things you need. And then, of course, once you're done imaging, you're not done. Then you do software processing, because that's where you pick all those choices that Stu was talking about. I think that's all, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's not.
So Rick's online, and we'll connect him in a second. But I just want to, that was a cue for Tara to cue him up. I just want to tell everybody now. I have, I'm part of this fancy scope in Chile, and he has obviously his fancy setup. To do astrophotography, you don't necessarily need a fancy setup. I like it, but if you have a camera and a lens, or if you just have a freaking iPhone, you can do astroimaging, and it's not that hard. And there are now telescopes which Bob will show us a little later that are very inexpensive, that can get really, really good images. They're point and shoot. You stick on, you put them on the ground, you let them whir, and and it shows up on your iPad or iPhone. All right, Rick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, right. So let's.
I'm okay. Stu, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, you have to share. Wait, no, I have to. Why'd you stop sharing?
I don't think I share. I think you're running the show there.
You start
Okay.
sharing.
Yeah. All right. So let me. I will share it, and you can just tell me when to advance. Okay.
Okay, that's great. And I don't think I need video for this, so I'm going to turn mine off and save the bandwidth here. But
wait.
you can hear me.
Okay,
Okay.
hang on a second. Wait. Okay, you're good to go.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And so I wish I could be there with everyone this evening, but I was double booked, as they say. I'm here in the Delta, in Isleton at my son's house, and it's his birthday tonight, so I couldn't quite miss it. So anyway, I'll try to make this brief, and then I'm going to apologize early and take off. I will not be around for the Q&A session because of events here. At any rate, though, I wanted to share some images with you. I've been going to the Golden State Star Party since I think about 2017 or 2018, and I absolutely love it. It's a wonderful dark sky location that's not too terribly far from the Bay Area. This is my imaging rig. It's a Meade 10-inch SCT. And the camera is a Canon RA, so it's a mirrorless, but it's a single. It's not a single lens reflex, but it's a mirrorless digital camera. So it can be used for terrestrial things as well. It has a lot more application for my purposes. By the way, in the background, below the camera, you can just see the top of Mount Shasta peeking up above the horizon there. So I mentioned it is a Meade 10-inch. We do use the Canon RA. All of the images you're going to see were taken at the same exposure. They were all 5-minute sub-exposures at ISO 1600, which works well for this camera. No filters were used at all on it. And the images, as Alex had mentioned, one of the final steps is to process the images. So I used a software program called Nina to essentially select all of the targets you're going to see, and then they were all processed in PixInsight, which is a dedicated image processing software. And Stu, the next slide, please. So I think everybody recognizes this. This is a globular cluster, M13, the Great Hercules Cluster. And I became kind of enamored with globular clusters up at the Chabot Space and Science Center. It's one of the objects we would look at quite frequently through the large telescopes. Seeing a globular in the 20-inch telescope or the 36 is almost it's a very emotional experience, believe it or not, for some people. So I was planning this shoot. The imaging plan for the GSSP was actually to image this globular cluster, then move to the Ring Nebula, and then to go to my primary target, which is the Fireworks Galaxy, and then to finish up with the Helix Nebula. This was all timed so that I would have about an hour on each target every evening, an hour on an M13, and about an hour on M57, about 2 hours on the Fireworks Galaxy, and then finishing with maybe 15 minutes to 30 minutes on the Helix. And I'll explain why in a second. Another interesting fact about this cluster is that during the pandemic, we used to live stream video from the Chabot Space and Science Center using Nellie, our 36-inch Cassegrain reflector. And Gerald McKeegan would be operating. He'd be our control operator. And Rich Ozer was our IT specialist, and he operated all the IT and for the live stream. And I operated the camera. And so the three of us during the pandemic would try to put on a show for the public. And one evening, I remember Rich Ozer saying, well, you know, Isaac Asimov wrote a short story called Nightfall. And this was published, I think, back in 1941 or so. And it was Asimov's first real widely accepted sci-fi article. And it was about a civilization that lived on a planet that had no fewer than 6 suns. So it was in perpetual sunlight. But about every 2,000 years came this rare alignment where there was a total eclipse, and this planet, Lagash, I think it's called, was plunged into darkness. I was taken by that statement, hook, line, and sinker. That's why I imaged this globular. And this, by the way, is imaged over 2 years at GSSP, 3 nights in 2024, and then 3 nights in 2025. And by the way, one thing you will never see visually is a galaxy that's in the upper right corner. That's, and I was blanking on the galaxy designation, but that galaxy is a spiral that is 50 million light years away. You would never know it was there unless you imaged it. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next slide up in my imaging sequence for the evening was the Ring Nebula. And why was the Ring Nebula chosen? I was looking for filler until my main imaging target came into a good position to image. What's interesting about the Ring Nebula is that there too is a barred spiral galaxy. You just see it in the upper left, and that galaxy is about 250 million light years away. I think it's IC 1296 if memory works still here. At any rate, you would never see this unless you tried some imaging. And this image, as like the other, was composed over 6 nights, 3 nights in 24 and 3 nights in 25. And you might ask, well, why do you do that? Why do you take so many images? Because the more images you take and stack, the better the signal to noise ratio, and the more you can extract from that particular target. Next slide, please. This one is one of my favorites, and I'm sure you have all seen pictures of this at least. It's the beautiful Helix Nebula. Now, everyone is familiar with M57. And M57 has a diameter of about, I think it's 1.2 arc minutes. So it's rather narrow, rather small, narrow object. You have to use a lot of magnification to see any detail. The Helix, on the other hand, is over 10 times the size of M57. And what you see here is a full frame image from that camera. The field of view here is about 40 arc minutes by 60 arc minutes. So it's roughly 2/3 of a degree by 1 degree. And you can see how large that planetary nebula is. And it's likely that large because it's so close to us. Next slide, please. And this was actually my target. This is NGC 6946, also known as the Fireworks Galaxy. And I had thought about this galaxy this year because I was looking for something that was kind of bold and really had a lot of interest. The spiral arms are just loaded with these very dense knots of hydrogen star-forming areas. This particular galaxy is called the Fireworks Galaxy because I think in the past 10 or 20 years, no fewer than 10 supernovae have been observed in these spiral arms. And the other thing that's kind of noteworthy is that the galaxy looks like it's a little hazy, especially towards the left. On the right side, to the right of the galaxy, the background stars seem darker. But to the left of the galaxy, it kind of looks hazy. And it's hazy because it is interstellar dust that has been illuminated by the light of the Milky Way. And that is what you're seeing there. I would think that would be somewhat of a reflection nebula. And it's actually called IFN, and I'm just blanking on exactly what IFNN stands for at this point. Maybe somebody can chime in with that. But the galaxy itself is just incredible. And it is about 20 million light years distant, although that number is debated or debatable. Anyway, it's just one of my favorite objects. Next item there. This is my last slide. And this one I took captured, if you will, here in Isleton back in, I think it was October, when Comet Lemon was in the sky. And this image was taken with a C-Star S30, one of the smart telescopes. And just for fun, one evening I had the C-Star out at my son's house, and I said, let's go see and try to capture this comet. And there was a huge cloud bank coming in, and I set the thing up. In about 1 minute, it was actually looking at the comet. And so this image is the result of 15 10-second images that I stacked in PixInsight. And I'm sure it's cropped to some extent, but that's all it was, 10, 15-second images. And I was thrilled to no end because it was only the second comet image I had ever recorded. So anyway, that's all I have. Thanks for your indulgence over the speakers, and I look forward to maybe hearing some questions from the group at the end of the presentation. So thank you, Stu.
All right. Enjoy the birthday. Thanks for joining us, Rick.
Thank you, Stu.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Jim, one of our star astro imagers. Here you go.
It's the clicker.
It's here.
Okay, these are some local images, and when I say local, I'm talking about a half a mile in that direction. This is Messier 81, and it was discovered in 1774 by a fellow named Johann. I'm going to mispronounce this. I think it's Boda in German. And it's named after him, but it was cataloged by Charles Messier, so it's more commonly known as M81. So it shows you the difference between discovering an object and getting it cataloged. So the guys with the catalogs seem to win. Charles Messier was an 18th century astronomer, comet hunter, and cataloged all of these nebula and objects. It's fairly bright. It's a 7th magnitude object, which makes it an easy object for a small telescope. It's 12 million light years away, and it measures about 96,000 light years in diameter. Give you some perspective, the Milky Way is considered to measure somewhere between 100 and 200 light years in diameter. So it's on par with the Milky Way. The pinkish speckling that you see in there, as Rick mentioned, those are star-forming regions that are hydrogen-rich. Now, if you took a spiral galaxy and turned it on its edge, you would see something like this. This is NGC 4565, and for those of you who don't know what an NGC is, it's the New General Catalog. That supplanted the Messier catalog. This is an edge-on spiral galaxy. It's up in the sky right now, and it's in Coma Berenices. It's also known as the Needle for, I don't know, all these galaxies seem to have nicknames. It was discovered by William Herschel, which some of you may have heard of, in 1785. It's a 10th magnitude, rather dim galaxy, but if you brought it into the same distance as the Andromeda galaxy, which is 2.5 million light years away, this is 38 million light years away, it would be more luminous, brighter than the famous Andromeda galaxy. Since it's 10th magnitude, it requires a moderate-sized telescope. And then this is an open cluster on the border of Taurus, Gemini, and I think it's Orion. And it's only 3,000 light years away. This one was an interesting study that was going to be a throwaway image. And what you see here are two objects. One is the little, thank you, that little open cluster is a line of sight cluster. It's not associated with a M35. The reason I got interested in this is the color contrast between the blue stars and the golden stars. And when I posted this on my webpage, I had somebody from Stellarview call me up or send me an email and said, "We'd like to use your image and put it in a video." And I said, "Help yourself. It's all yours." So this showed up in the Stellarview video that came out in January of this year. And they also liked my version of the Thor's helmet, which was shown earlier. And they went ahead and did a video on that as well. So interesting. That's it for me.
Xianwen is my favorite because he started off knowing absolutely nothing. And this is what, 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now he's going to show you what he can do because he joined the astroimaging group.
Yeah. Hey. So, okay. So basically is I'm going to just show you some before and after images from when I started. And I have here. Okay, so what do I point to?
He's giving away his
Okay.
picture. So
Alright.
the laser pointer is here.
Okay.
Okay.
I got a laser pointer.
Oh,
I have one.
well, you just use this one.
Okay.
This has a laser pointer.
Okay.
So there. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the first is this is before. First, I'm going to show you Pac-Man Nebula and also Deerly Galaxy, two different image objects I shot. And so you can see that I have different equipment. That was my original equipment. This is an SCT, and then this is my different setup. You can see that before and after, that was a regular DSLR camera. I adapted to connect to the back of the telescope, and then I bought a second-hand astronomy camera dedicated, and I control one is simply with the stock. What came with original set. This is the SMIDI computer control everything, and I use my notebook later on to do a better control to get more accurate. And this is for camping, be outside. All right, and that is my backyard. And what you can see is in 2024 and 2025. So the first image, this is called Pac-Man Nebula because it looked like a Pac-Man in the game. And the first image, this was done with basically no filter. And this is all the pink color because it has significant hydrogen information. And then the second attempt, I did it. I used two different nights of pictures. I took with the first night, I took pictures with a dual narrowband filter, which basically had hydrogen and oxygen. And next night, I used sulfur and oxygen filter. And then I used a computer program to split the channels. I have hydrogen, and then combine all the oxygen, and I combine all the of the left the sulfur. So I have three primary colors to process. This is a mono color camera. And you can see the difference between, and this color is, as earlier said by other members, is assigned by computer. And next one, this one is actually interesting. I took it with Nikon camera initially, and there was a Deerly Galaxy, and you can see that there are a few background galaxies in the back. This is what I took first. And I just basically follow what people post on Facebook. If they can see it, I can probably do it. And that's how I chose initially also to look for Messier catalog object, because if the guys in 17th century could see in his backyard, we probably can see it with our small telescope without being fancy. And moving forward, and what happened later, a year later, is someone told me that there was a supernova in that area. And I went back, look back, I took the same picture now with a different camera, a little bit, it was same telescope. We can see that I just marked here in the center, near center of the galaxy core, there is supernova that is actually brighter than the core of the galaxy. And this was probably 3 or 4 weeks after supernova was reported. And I found that it was, since I have before and after, and this basically how people hunt supernova when they found it. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Next, we're going to get to Marcia, and she's going to show you some just amazing stuff.
Well, I tend to take my night sky images with a much wider view. I like to include the Earth, a landscape, with my night sky images, because for me, it gives me a sense of place of our universe, Earth, which is an amazing planet with the night sky. So this is my take on it. My equipment is very simple. I have a Sony a7 IV and tripod, and I do use a tracker on occasion, and I have a ASI Air Mini to help me find those things that I can't see with my own eyes. So, next slide. Okay, this is on the left, the zodiacal glow. And this is a phenomena that happens during the equinoxes. And at that sort of pyramid shape you see is, originally it was thought to be dust from the Oort cloud, but now scientists are thinking that maybe this is dust from Mars's dust storms that got blown off. And the sun has set for about an hour and it reflects on this, and you see it on the ecliptic. The next image was, was taken at Bodie, and originally I was going to do some tracking there, but because of the clouds, I couldn't polar align. So I just pivoted, and I took this with a 55mm lens, a series that I stacked, and I had actually planned to get the row of Fiocchi on the right over the steeple, but by the time I could get up there, it had moved, and I thought, well, a dark horse galloping over a ghost town isn't so bad. Next. Comet to Shinshan. I went on a comet chase for about a month, and Tara joined me on some of this. And this was about towards the end where the comet started to go away from Earth, and it was getting a little bit harder to see. It's taken down at McClure's Beach. I knew it was going to be next to the Milky Way. I also knew that this pond was there because I saw it a couple of days ago. I'd been out there. So I came out just for this shot, and I was delighted to be able to get some of the Milky Way reflected in the pond. I was hoping for the comet to be reflected in the pond, but angle wasn't right. Next. Comet Neowise. I love comets. To me, they are absolutely fascinating. And I would also went on a comet chase for this one that lasted about a month from when it was first observed early morning, just before sunrise, until it went clear around, or the Earth went clear around. And it was, this is over the Alabama hills in the evening. And I couldn't believe it. This is in July, late July, but the Perseid meteor shower was just kind of starting to show up. and that meteor went right through and split the tail, the ion tail and the dust tail. That was a really lucky shot. Next. Auroras. Boy, you know, the Milky Way, when I first started out, used to be like my favorite awestruck subject until I went up to Alaska and I saw the auroras, and they are absolutely amazing. And they're a little tricky to photograph because they are so bright and they move so fast that you have to have a fairly short shutter speed to be able to get the motion without a blur. And the motion and the vertical that you see kind of follows the magnetic lines of the aurora when it comes through. Next. And if we're lucky enough, the aurora comes to California if we get a really good storm. And this happened 2 years ago. Was it a year ago? 2 years ago. And I was out with a friend. We were at the going to shoot the Perseids meteor shower. We are at Lake Tenaya. And I noticed some pink in the sky. And I remember reading something that we were going to have maybe an electromagnetic storm, but I never really thought it was going to get strong enough to get this far down. But I looked at my camera and then I held my iPhone up and I went, oh my God, there's aurora there. So I got a double treat, aurora and the Perseids.
Can I just interrupt? Can you go back, Marcia? She got more than a double treat because she has aurora, she has meteors, she has the Pleiades in there, she has the north arm of the Milky Way, she has mountains and a reflection. Anybody else want to chime in? That shot has it all. It's amazing.
No, the aurora, Pleiades, Milky Way is all one shot. The Perseids, I aligned, sort of time shifted based upon where the North Star was, so that they're all coming from the radiant point. So those were added. But I mean, my camera was just going every 20 seconds, it would take a shot. And then I would mark those, which ones had meteors, and compile them with the base shot, which is the aurora and Pleiades. Okay. I also like to do what some friends of mine and all we call deepscapes. And this is where I do have to use a tracker. And this is taken at McClure's Beach looking east. And you can see Bernard's Loop just sort of on the left, and then the Flame and Horsehead Nebula, and then the Orion Nebula. And I really enjoy trying to compose so that the whatever my celestial target is above where I want it in the image, so that when I do get the tracker on the celestial target, I will have to move it in the frame so that it either misses the trees or it's over a single point that I want, etc. Next. And this is the Lick Observatory with the Flame and Horsehead Nebula on there. That is about almost 2 hours exposure on a tracker. And then, of course, I have to stop the tracker when I do the foreground. And this was a planned shot. I actually had help from one of your past speakers, Rick Whitaker, helped me with this shot in terms of planning. And then we took our cameras up there, and there was a lot of growling and yelping and stuff out there. And I decided not to use the ASIR Mini to find what I needed to find, because I thought, if I've got to grab my stuff and run, I don't want to be bothered disconnecting a bunch of wires. So anyway, but it was easy to see. This is a 600 millimeter lens on a tracker, and I have a little Ioptron SkyGuider Pro, and that lens just sort of maxes it out. And I shoot with an A7 IV Sony that has been, the sensor has been modified to be receptive to HA. And that's about it.
Thank you. Bob?
Actually, no, this is a.
Yeah, that's fine. Shinwin has another pointer.
So as the title says, shallow sky. I really admire everybody else in the group who does the deep sky. Hours and hours of exposure, hours and hours of processing. And I frankly don't have the patience for that. And but I really do. These guys have done amazingly in the last, particularly in the last few years. Somebody mentioned being a long-term member. Does anybody remember Jim Scala? And I remember going up with Jim with a paper print, the first digital picture I took of Jupiter. And he sort of shook his head and saying, sort of, what's this? I mean, it's like, it's amazing the progress that's taken place. But the other thing that's taking place for me is that my eyes have really deteriorated. So I have macular degeneration. Raise hands, anybody else? But as you get older, it happens. So visual astronomy has become much less possible for me. I was telling somebody earlier, when I look through a good telescope at the Orion Nebula, it disappears. I can't see it anymore. It's not one star going away, it's the whole thing goes away. But with this thing, notice down here in the corner, that's a 1 minute exposure with one of these modern little cheap by Stu's standards. The $500 or $600 is, and this is the Orion Nebula with a 1 minute exposure. And the other one is, you saw Comet Lemon. This is Comet Lemon with the same telescope in a fairly dark sky, and it's actually three images put together. So much of what I've been doing lately with this kind of stuff is either stacking with an automated telescope or live stacking. Someone mentioned that earlier. Little 80 millimeter refractor, a good astronomical camera, and some software called SharpCap. And in a few minutes, you can see some pretty amazing stuff. And it's worth, if you're having trouble with the visual, it's worth looking into some of these other options. You all know I'm very much interested in eclipses and transits and the like. And we just had the lunar eclipse just recently. The next lunar eclipse is not for quite a long time. I thought I had written down there, it's 8 years from now or something like that. Next solar eclipse is this summer. A lot of folks are going to either Iceland or Greenland or Spain, the Mediterranean. Travel this summer is somewhat iffy. 2027, and in Spain in particular, where the weather is probably most optimistic for it, the sun will be extremely low. In fact, on Mallorca, where I have a reservation at a resort, the sun will be just above the horizon. The corona will be elliptical, not round. It's so low in the sky. There's likely to be forest fires in Spain. 2026 doesn't look very hopeful. 2027, however, very long eclipse, very high in the sky. The Mediterranean is a good place to see that. The next Mercury transit isn't until 2032. The next Venus transit isn't until 2117. So I don't think, many of you will see 2032, but I don't think any of us will make the next one. But those are all, they're worth traveling for, and they're really spectacular. And I want to just emphasize this one here. This one in particular is my favorite picture of all the eclipses I've taken. This totality lasted 6 seconds. It was from an airplane at about 35,000 feet, flying at right angles to the path of the eclipse over the Bermuda Triangle. As it transitioned from being an annular eclipse to being total, what you see is the spectrum of the chromosphere of the sun. And usually you see that you can see it as a flash at the beginning or the end of an eclipse. This, to see it all at once, was really very special. There, eclipses. And there we go. I spent most of my time with photography these days imaging the sun. And these two are recent ones with a new camera that lets me take the whole sun at once. And in this particular case, this is a very active region that was popping off bright flares over and over and over again, its whole trip across the face of the sun for weeks. And it came around again afterwards. Color processing like this to bring out to show different details can often show different details. It can be pretty helpful. The trick that I hadn't, when I put this in the show, I hadn't quite accomplished yet, was to balance the chromosphere, which is this bright layer, and the prominences with the disk. The one I did a couple of days ago is much better. But that's part of the fun of this whole process of the photography that I think all of us share, is that you get some level of skill, some level of detail that you can show, an idea of what you want to show, and then the more you do it, the better you get at it. And this is an example of a close-up of that active region. And solar max, the cycle of the sun where it can get more and more sunspots, it's actually probably peaked and it's on its way down. But for the next few years, it's still going to be very impressive. And I would encourage all of you to observe it, try to photograph it. And white light photography is pretty straightforward. Just get the right kind of filter and be very careful with the use of it. When I took my first pictures of the sun, I was probably 12 years old. That was a very long time ago. And I can still remember looking in a telescope and being literally overwhelmed by how bright it was, because I was totally naive in what I was doing. So don't do that. This one's particularly fun because if you look closely, oops. Here we go. If you look closely, here we go. You see this little light bridge inside the sunspot. Movies of this, and I do have some, but this stuff is all just in continuous motion. Okay. And the other thing that I've concentrated on is better and better resolution and detail in planetary and lunar imaging. And the Jupiter image that's there uses a program that's been around for many, many years, and I've only recently started using it. Jupiter moves so quickly that if you take a series of pictures for longer than 90 seconds and stack them together to improve the signal to noise, the image is blurred because Jupiter is moving so much. So what this program is able to do is to take many of those 90-second samples, piece them together, and mathematically project them onto a sphere of Jupiter, and then combine them in any way you'd like. And this seemingly animation is actually created by taking a set of about 20 or 30 of those 90-second images, combining them, and then mathematically creating the 50 frames that make up that movie. So it's artificial in the sense that the software has created it, but it's from real data. And that's what all those images would have looked like. In the lower left is a fairly rare occurrence where Titan is transiting over the face of Saturn with Saturn's rings almost on edge. And I am embarrassed to say how many pictures of Plato in the Alpine Valley I must have in my computer. Because what you can't see from back there and you can barely see here is there's this little tiny rill that goes down the center of the valley. And capturing the light just right and getting the image good enough to see that is the goal. It's years and years. There's also little craterlets in Plato that are like a kilometer across or something, another challenge. If you have any sort of a telescope, any sort of a camera, a DSLR in particular, the moon, the planets are really good. The moon in particular is a really good target to start with. The moon, the full moon, when you look up it and look at it and see how bright it is, think how bright a concrete driveway is in front of your house. It's the same. It's about the same distance from the sun. It's got about the same reflectivity as a typical concrete. And so it's a very bright subject. You don't need tracking. You don't need anything fancy in the way of a camera to capture it. Okay. The other thing I've done over the years in that picture of the spectrum of the sun is using a relatively inexpensive diffraction grating. It's a couple of $100 interspersed between a telescope and a camera. And this sequence here, well, actually, first off, this is a spectrum of a nova in 2021. This is a period of almost 2 weeks, I think it is, from here to here. A nova that looked like this. A few days later, it looked like this, and then this, and so on and so on. And so you can actually interpret, if you were smart enough, I don't claim to be, you can interpret this to understand what the process was going on in the supernova as it changed over that period of time. And this was with a, like I say, a $200 diffraction grating, a Canon E1. So now you can buy those for $100 probably on eBay. But it had been modified to have the sensitivity in hydrogen alpha on the back of a Celestron C8. So nothing terribly fancy. This, however, they've been predicting this now for quite a while. I think it's 87 years is the period of this thing that gets very bright. Right now it's 10th magnitude. When it goes off, and you can see if the sky in France was right on June 25th, I mean, they're making predictions that close. It could be as bright as Polaris, so easily visible. A few nights ago, again, too late to put into the thing here, I took the Sea Star out, stuck it in the backyard, programmed it to take a picture for an hour between 4:30 and 5:30 in the morning. So I now have a picture of the field that includes that star without the nova. So maybe one of these days I'll show you the thing with it going. Let's see, this is another one. Nope, okay. That's it. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, next is Dan, your membership coordinator.
Yes. That's a good thing to say. So if most of you have paid your membership dues, but if you haven't, you have about a week. So it's probably good I'm following with Bob because I'm also going to talk about some planetary stuff. And I've been doing imaging for 25 years. And so to try to keep myself from getting bored, what I've found I've been doing more lately is trying to find weird planetary things, which mostly involve the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. And so these things, you know, if you have software, you can find them. but they happen when they happen. And there's three important things in planetary imaging: seeing, seeing, and seeing. And so whenever you image, you're at the mercy of whatever the seeing is at that point. But I think, as you'll see, I got kind of lucky on some of these, although it's not perfect. And the other thing is, because it's moons, they are kind of small, so hopefully you can see it. Let's see, is it just this arrow? No, the other way. Okay, so, if you look at Jupiter, you might have seen one of the moons go in front of it with its shadow, but it's a little more unusual to see two of them at the same time. And so this is Io and Europa. Let's see, which is the laser. Oh, here we go. Oh, it stopped. Okay. Did I do that? Okay, I guess I did. So anyway, the first little bright thing, that's Io, then Europa, and of course they're the shadows. And it's kind of hard to see, but you actually can still see the moon on the planet. It's just that the contrast isn't as good, of course, as the moon. But the other thing, which I actually wasn't even expecting, is there's this third shadow down there of Callisto, and that was sort of like an added benefit. Oh, one thing I'll mention about these pictures, I did them a little different than what Bob described. I took an image every 15 minutes and then just stitched those into a movie. So you'll notice it's not as smooth as what Bob showed. There's a little bit of a jerk because there's 15-minute gaps between each image. So this one looks kind of less exciting than the other one, but it's actually in a way more interesting and more rare, because this is actually Jupiter and Callisto at opposition, like almost right at the exact moment. And so when opposition occurs, the sun, the Earth, and Jupiter are all in a line, and so is the moon. And so the shadow of the moon is under the moon, just exactly like you would expect when everything's in a line. And you can't really see it here, but in a higher resolution image, you would see that there's the moon and its shadow is about half underneath it. So this is, you might see that it's not a perfect circle. That's because of that moon and then half shadow underneath it. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show, notice the difference in size. So that's from October 18th to January of this year. That's the difference in the size of Jupiter just in those few months moving to opposition when it's closest to us. And Bob had this picture. This one isn't quite as sharp, but this one is also when Saturn was near opposition. And if you've looked at Saturn, of course, lately, we're edge on to the ring. So we're hardly seeing anything of the ring. But the great thing about that is we're also in the same plane as the moons rotate around Saturn. And this is actually probably the most unusual of all, because we have to be lined up just that way. And this only happens every 15 years or so. And I didn't even know this was a thing, that Titan actually would cast a shadow on Saturn. And again, it's kind of hard to see, it gets better, but there's two dots there, and one of them is Titan and the other is its shadow, sort of like the other one, just not as lined up as well. Oops. And then this last one, this one happened a few years ago, and some of you may have even saw this, but I just thought this was cool, this Mars being occulted by the moon, and so I tried to capture that. But I kind of, what I found most amazing is you can actually see there's a little bit of detail on the moon's surface, or I mean the Mars's surface. So anyway, yep. That's it.
Hey, right. Double bubble trouble. All right, so I changed things up a little bit. I started shooting with a refractor instead of my C11 reflector. And I went up to Barcroft last year thinking, Cassiopeia is really well positioned. I think I'll take an attempt at the Bubble Nebula. I like shooting things that you can barely see visually and try to bring them out using, visual light in an astrophoto. So the other thing that people always ask me to explain is how we do processing. And I thought I would show you a little bit of how the image is kind of deconstructed and reconstructed into a final image. Anyway, next slide, please. Oh, I've got the control. Next slide, please. There we go. Let's see if I could do this. Yeah, there we go. So my thought was that the first night I would take the luminance image of the bubble and capture as much of the red as I can, and then continue with red, green, and blue over the next couple of nights after that. So I got some really good data on the luminance. You can see the bubble right there in the middle, right? And then I took several hours of red, and that was it for the week because the weather moved in and it was cloudy the entire rest of the trip. So that kind of set up a conundrum because all I had was luminance and red, and I at least wanted the stars to have the right color. So I had to take the rest of my images in Concord. And so the challenge there, of course, is the light pollution and all the other things that got in the way. But so this is a work in progress. I'm probably going to get new blue and green images when I go up again this year. But there's the red, and you get a pretty good sense of what the bubble looks like. And whoops, there we go. And then that's not what I wanted to do. That's one of the things we do is create masters for each of the colors. I'm not showing you my blue and green ones, but I did get good data for the stars, I thought, even though I could probably stand to get more blue and green. And one of the things I like about this image is the capture of the stars. And I used a process that calibrates the star color with the spectrographic databases that are available in public domain. And PixInsight allows you to adjust the color of the all the foreground stars, background stars, to match what is actually the case. I did that here, and it's the first time I've ever done that successfully. And here it is all put back together. There should be a little bit of blue in that bubble, but there isn't yet. But there will be. Anyway, that's the final image so far, and that's all I got. Mm-hmm.
Kevin here? Oh, there you are. Okay. You talk into it, and I can do that. I can do that.
Well, about 8 years ago, I decided to retire, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with all that time that I was going to experience. And so I chose astrophotography. I figured, well, what the heck? I'm a pretty good photographer, how hard can this be? Well, I learned a lot in the meantime, and my basic conception was what a lot of people go through to learn about astrophotography and the steps that you have to go through. Basically, preparation, location selection, image capture, pre-processing signal optimization, and post-processing enhancement. And that's what I expected I would be doing. Little did I know about Bortle conditions and the difference between ultra-azimuth and equatorial mounts and the quality of the mount. So all that comes into play into the quality of the final image. And just a side note, one of my peers from Japan, who's in Japan on the unicellular network, shot this flare
back in 23 on February 17th. So we think it's a flare because there are no other artifacts in the image itself. So it's the only place that it shows up. But I don't know if it's been totally verified. Next slide, please. So anyway, after about a year in retirement, my unistellar telescope came, and probably about a year after that, they came out with a citizen science program. And so what I learned about that citizen science program is, well, I could kind of expand my repertoire. And instead of just imaging, I can use the skill set that I'd been learning over time and do some citizen science work. So, and it turns out that unistellar, because all of their equipment is basically, the same focal length and the same aperture, they can automate a lot of their processing. So essentially what you do is you do the first 2 steps on image capturing, and then you send that data in over the network and they process that data for you. And then you come back, they come back with some results for you. Next slide. It's up here, it's kind of hard to see, but along the top of the very fine print are the several citizen science programs that they have. And they are asteroid occultations, comets. Somebody likes comets here. Cosmic catastrophes, exoplanets, which I'm interested in, planetary defense, which I'm also interested in, and satellites, and I can't read that last one. That's a more thing. So, and the map on the right is kind of a live map of people who are observing that night along with you. So you can kind of get an image of what's going on around the world on the unistellar network. You can do the next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so one of my first examples was planetary defense. So I imaged AP10, and what they did is they came up with a light curve with my observations and several other observations. And then they developed this model of what the asteroid looks like. And it's got some interesting facts. It's about the size of Mount Everest. So it was kind of considered a threat for a while, but after we imaged it and determined what the orbit was going to be, or the trajectory was going to be with it, we figured that it wasn't going to bother Earth for quite some time. So we're pretty good on that. Next slide. Yep. Okay, and you can do the play me in the lower right. So this is what my observations look like. This is what an enhanced image looks like from the unistellar telescope. And then you can see the asteroid itself just kind of moving through time and the trajectory it's taken amongst the stars. The GIF up there on the right is the results that they made and sent back to me. So, and then that was the actual night that I made this image here. And you can kind of see the alt azimuth twisting around through the night. Next slide. So the current reports that are automated from unistellar are pretty detailed. And this one by Bruce Parker, he's on the East Coast. And this is one of the results that he gets. And they show the light curve down below. And so you get a pretty detailed report, and it usually takes, once you send the data in, it usually takes 24 to 48 hours to get a report back. Next slide. There we go. And if you can click the play me on the right there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is transcontinental observations that we've been doing. So essentially what they do is they show you an exoplanet and they show you, where it's going to be visible in the red. And then you coordinate your observations with others around the world. And from that, you get a long duration and you can track your light curves, through the whole exoplanet transit by looking at that stars. By looking at, comparing the transit and the dimming from the transit to a reference star. So the feedback's pretty plentiful over there. And one of the interesting transits that I did was a transit of a disintegrating planet. And the people in the Unistellar Science Network, Citizen Science Network, are very communicative. So this is kind of one of the kudos that one of the coordinators had sent us. And next slide. Yeah. I'd throw that. So this was the result of looking at exoplanet BD05 4868 AB. You can see where on this part of the curve, where the transit started taking place and the slowly trailing upward trend is the planet that is breaking up. And so you're seeing basically the core of the planet there, but the pieces that are trailing behind it are slowly allowing more light through as the core moves beyond its beyond the other side of the expected transit period. So this was kind of an interesting result, and you can see several of the people around the world that had taken observations to make this light curve. And it was a multi-day event, actually. Next slide. And so this is a typical transit report and what it looks like. And you typically get that in about a 24 to 48 hour time period. And it's all automated. Sometimes they have to go in there and give the pipeline a kick to get the data moving again. But other than that, you can really expect the results of your observation pretty quickly. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so my conclusions is that astrophotography is about maximizing your signal, but all the signals aren't pictorial. You use the pictures in order to capture more data, but they all require imaging of some sort. So the Citizen Science Group are, worldwide collaboration. You get to meet some people and communicate with people from different cultures and different countries. And you get to make friends worldwide. It was pretty neat because we took a trip to Japan, and one of the people that I would talk to over the network gave me some pretty good cultural hints and what to expect in our trip. So that's it.
So even better than Facebook. Okay, we don't have time? Do we not? We don't really have any time for questions, but if you want to join the imaging group, email me. My email's in the newsletter. Thank you to all the imagers here. All right.
Hey, before the imagers go, I want to get a picture of you guys all together because this doesn't happen in real life very often. Thank you all for coming. If you do have questions for the imagers, feel free to email Stu and the group, and they will get back to you. Okay. Thank you everybody for coming. We'll see you next month.
Hey, folks, is the Yosemite party this year? The star party at Yosemite?
Nate, can you hear me?
Yes, is the Yosemite star party this year?
Hopefully. So we are in talks with the park, our new Yosemite coordinator, Kevin Fairweather. It has a email thread going and they're working on it now. There's a lottery because there's more clubs that want to do it than are spots available. So cross your fingers.
Oh,
We're hoping.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the next
Well,
few weeks or
in a
month, we should
funny
know.
way, although I'd hate to see us lose out, that's maybe a good sign of